From technology to data to investment to health and safety, there was no shortage of topical issues at the just concluded Mining Indaba conference held in Cape Town, South Africa. The high-profile event that brings together mining resource economies across Africa, investors and their partners from around the world also clocked 30 years at the 2024 edition. Let's chat now to the takeaways of the Mining Indaba as we bring on Peter Major. Peter is a miner and a mining investor, as well as the director in charge of mining at Mergence Corporate Solutions in Cape Town. Good evening to you, my friend. It's good to have you on the show tonight.
Thanks, Bosun.
Yes.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, thank you very much. First time we're getting together in the new year after the African Energy Chambers Conference last October. So it's good to see you again on the show on this side of the continent. Thank you so much. I'm sure you enjoyed yourself at the Mining Indaba. I'm not sure you've missed any ever of this annual conference. But for this year, what are the key issues at this edition? What are the key issues that were really thrown up? Talk to me.
You know, the key issues tend to vary country to country, but there are some similar overriding issues. It's legislation and leadership. And that was probably the biggest topic going. You know, people want consistent legislation, and they want legislation that makes sense, because we've seen so many countries with experimenting with legislation. And Zambia is a good example. Zambia had very negative legislation after nationalizing the mines in the late 60s, early 70s, and they had very little investment in those mines, and metal prices were falling in the 80s and 90s. Then they changed the legislation, and all of a sudden, around 2000, they started getting a lot of investment, even though metal prices weren't going up. And then when metal prices went up, that investment doubled and then doubled again. But then by 2007 and 8, Zambia started changing negative legislation and reneging on their agreement. So that's an example. South Africa came out with bad legislation in 2002. The market fell 30%. Then when they implemented it in 2004, it fell 30% again. And unfortunately, it's chased out all the foreign investors. So that's pretty much the main topic. The darlings of this Indaba, though, are Zambia, the DRC, and Angola. The whole investment world sees those leaders as doing the right thing. Zambia has some credibility problems. They've got a great leader now. He's been in there for 3 years, but he's dealing with such entrenched corruption and mismanagement. He's having a hard time turning the ship around. The DRC is flying, and Angola is doing the right things.
Interesting. But are there new challenges that the African mining sector face? You talk about legislation. What else is there on the table that folks within the industry, your professionals like yourself, investors, companies doing business, the big mining names in Africa, what are the big challenges they face outside legislation?
Okay, the big challenges still remain infrastructure. Mines need electricity that runs 24/7, and it should be reasonably economic. You know, if your electricity costs are multiples of the rest of the world, your cost of production is going to render it uneconomic, and you'll close the mine. So all the mines need reliable electricity at competitive prices. All the mines could use better transportation. It shouldn't take a month to get material to the DRC. It shouldn't take 3 weeks to get important components to Zambia. I've been told the road from Lusaka to Kabwe is the same road that the British left in the 1960s, that the road has not been widened since. But we know what the population of Zambia has done going from Lusaka to Kabwe. So this infrastructure problem, it's not crippling the mining industry, but it's maiming it. It's hurting it a lot. We could have such quicker expansion and growth in the mining sector if we could get this infrastructure problem under control. More electricity, faster, more transport. We got to go back to rail transport. We can't let the trucking mafia continue to hold all these countries hostage, as they have, sabotaging railroads when we try and put the railroads through.
Yeah, interesting points you raised there, Peter. But again, globally speaking, I'm sure technology is making the business of mining much easier than some of what has been done in a number of African mining frontiers, where you still have a whole lot of artisanal mining and the type of equipment and what have you. So what are these new trends in the global mining industry, and how should Africa position for those changes being discussed by those who are bringing technology and investment monies to the table for the mining industry in Africa?
I think the largest global trends, that changing trends I've seen in mining in 40 years in Africa, are mechanization. A lot of the mining that's in open pits, that was always mechanized. But now, excuse me, the equipment is so much larger, it is so much productive, that we can move a lot more tons with fewer men. We can dig bigger holes faster with fewer men. But those machines require a lot of diesel. So diesel usage has gone way up. Electricity usage has gone way up because the concentrators we're building now are huge. They're larger than ones we've had before. We want to say AI, artificial intelligence, but believe me, computers are taking the place of a lot of people. So your processing plants and your mines need a lot less people than they did before. ESG, environmental safety and governments. Mines are being forced to be very, very green, very, very safe. The mines have never been as safe as they are now. They've never been as green as they are now, and they're getting greener and safer. They're starting to generate their own electricity through solar plants. And that's much better than generators burning diesel. So I think those are the trends. And exploration, oh boy, technology has really helped exploration. You can use a drone to do what an airplane and a helicopter did at a tenth the cost. And the geophysics now are giving very distinctive readings what's under the ground.
A very interesting time we face, and I'm sure for someone like you who spent decades in the industry, I'm sure you've seen the evolution of the industry. But again, mining gold, diamond, platinum, aluminum, whatever it is out of the continent, always face some challenges when it comes to geopolitics. For example, the war of Russia and Ukraine, and of course the current hostilities in the Middle East, Israel and Hamas and all of that. So when you look at these multifaceted geopolitics issues around the world, how are they impacting Africa's mining sector right now? Or is the sector immune to these geopolitical issues?
Boson, you're pretty correct. I hate using that word immune because then something will hit our sector hard and show it's not immune, but it is very close to immune right now. We have high resistance because our mining sector here has had to battle so many wars and problems inside their own countries and next door. They are very resilient. Our mining sector is tough. So when you have a geopolitical conflict like Israel and Hamas, and even Russia and Ukraine, it's pretty amazing how it has not affected our industry very much. In fact, there may be more positive effects than negative effects. So, yeah, we haven't really noticed it. If it hurts one metal more than another, then it probably helps another metal more than before. So we're not immune to it, but we're pretty darned resistant. And it hasn't affected us hardly at all, hardly noticeable.
Okay, so let's come home to South Africa, where you spent many years in the mining industry, and it's Africa's leading mining economy, by the way. So what's the takeaway for the country from the Mining Indaba Summit? His Excellency President Ramaphosa was there and he delivered a keynote address. What are your takeaways on that?
Boson, most of us were pretty disappointed in the president's address. We thought the majority of it, he's rewriting history. He's still dwelling on the history. And we know apartheid on the mines fell in 1979, 1980. So by the time the ANC took over in 94, there hadn't been apartheid on the mines for 15 years. They were running on pure meritocracy. So now the ANC's been in charge for 30 years, and he did elucidate on the problems. He said mining's gone from almost 1 million men to 450,000. He said we now have 50,000 illegal miners. The president said we have a real energy crisis here. We're only producing half the energy we did 20 years ago with no end in sight. He said we have a railroad crisis we never dreamt of. Even though they've closed 2/3 of the railways and just concentrated on the main third, we're only hauling 65% of what we were 20 years ago. So he's telling us about the problems, but these problems were caused by the people running the country the last 30 years. They didn't just happen. And our road structure, our roads are falling apart because we have thousands of trucks that didn't exist, that were never supposed to be on the roads. These roads were designed for much smaller trucks. We had a great railroad system. That's how things are supposed to be moved. So South Africa is not learning from the countries above us and above those. They're not learning from Botswana, Namibia. They're not learning from the Congo. They're not learning from Zambia. And now Angola is going to show them up. They're doing the same negative things for 20 years now.
Interesting, South African miners such as ArcelorMittal have reported a slump in their earnings for last year because prices went down. What's your outlook for the current year now underway for South Africa's mining companies? What have you learned so far? The new year is just about 2 months, or 1.5 months in going. Peter.
A great thing about South Africa's mineral resources, they are very broad. So iron ore has held up amazingly well, even though we can't get 20 million tons out that we used to. You know, we're barely getting 40, 45 million. We should be getting 60 million. Coal is still holding over $100 a ton. That's not too bad. And gold, amazingly, is holding over 2,000. But we've closed 80% of our gold mines, even though we have 80%. We have 50% of the world's gold, and we've closed 80% of our gold mines. So we're not taking advantage of this high gold price. Our platinum mines, they're producing the same PGMs they were 10, 15 years ago. And they had fantastic prices in 2020, 21, 22. Even last year, the PGM prices weren't too bad. But today, this year, the last 6 months, these platinum prices have fallen over 50%. So I think platinum is taking the most strain in this industry right now. And diamonds, they're probably right behind platinum. Diamond market is very, very under pressure from laboratory grown diamonds and just a fall in normal diamond price. And demand is a bit weak, especially coming from China, Japan, and the Far East. America's holding up, but chrome prices are great. Manganese prices are okay. Yeah, we have a lot of commodities here, and most of them are still doing okay. It's just our infrastructure, Bolson.
Yeah, interesting. It's still early in the new year, but it's good. It's good touching base with you. Thank you so much, Peter Major at Mergers Corporate Solutions. We appreciate your robust insight into the mining industry as always. Have a great evening there in Cape Town, South Africa. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.